Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Parent C.O.D.E initiative. And tonight we will be discussing connecting. Let me tell you what the Parent C.O.D.E initiative is all about. Connecting, organizing, defending, and empowering parents. Tonight's workshop will be understanding supports, services, and rights as it relates to the IEPs, 504s, our beautiful organization SEPTA and ABA. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Good evening. The person you just heard earlier was April Cobb. My name is Denise Papillon. We are the co-founders of the Sunshine Education Coalition. And for several years now, we have been a grassroots organization that is interested in being advocates for parents, for students to just really reach in there and find out what we can do to help our community and also to just inform people as much as possible. So that's a little bit about us. You can read about us on the screen, and we want to go forward and share with you what we want to talk about today. So again, April and I together have had over 50 years combined of experience. We've been in this a long time. We've been we've been through all the various forms of education, especially here in Florida. We've done everything from Sunshine State standards. We've done best standards where we are right now. We've done A+. We've done all kind of learning. So we know some stuff. So we are very happy to share with you as much knowledge as we can, and look forward to engaging you in conversation today and in the future.
So our workshop objectives tonight are listed here. We're very big advocates on allowing you all to read for yourself, so that we don't take away from the opportunity for us to engage in dialogue about the much needed education for our parents here in the Tampa Bay area and anywhere in other states. Just keeping in mind that we are housed in Hillsborough County in the state of Florida. So some things might, be a little bit indifferent, but we do know that a IEP is an IEP and a 504 is a 504. But there might be some indifferences on how your school district may govern things a little bit differently. So we did want to point that out. And I'm not sure whether or not all PTAs have access to the SEPTAs, but I'm assuming that they would, because throughout the nation, there are students that have special needs and special education services are provided. And I do know ABA is very unique here in Florida because of all the new changes with insurance and budgets and all that good stuff. But I'm going to table that for an offline conversation because we could get so far up in that conversation where we can't come back. I have personal experience with it currently with my grandson, and it has not been easy. But again, we welcome you all, and we look forward to make sure that you all walk away with not only the dialogue that we have here, but some resources as it relates to being able to support you in this work.
So we just went through our introductions, and what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna talk about the IEP and 504. I'm gonna give you a little bit of information. I'm keeping in mind that I am a classroom teacher. So I'm going to give it to you also, not only tell you what it is specifically, but also to share with you how it affects things a little bit inside of the classroom. So that's the first thing we're going to discuss right now. Actually, did we want to? Yes. I'll go ahead and start with the IEPs, okay? So let's just get a quick overview of what it is. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, but I do want to at least give you a basic understanding of what the IEP and the 504. So starting off with the 504. A 504 plan is developed for students who have a disability, but they do not require special education services. So let's be clear about what that is, okay? So they are specifically when a student is being excluded from activity due to a major disability. This is when the 504 plan is needed. And so you're looking at things like, for example, if a child has like ADHD, ADD, a child may have be suffering from substance abuse. They have temporary physical disabilities or mental health issues, things that will remove them from the classroom, where they spend time maybe in counseling. They have time where they have to go back to school. They may miss a particular amount of time in class. So this is where the 504, and keep in mind, it is more temporary. It's something that child can get off of, after a period of time, after a period of evaluation. Okay, so it's important that you understand that that has to do with their physical and mental health as well. They may have something like in my class, I may have a child who has a 504 because they have asthma, and they may need to go to the nurse office because of they have to take their spray or pump, or get a quick asthma attack. Other kids, for example, I had a student who has diabetes, and they have to stop and have a little bit more food than other kids. They may snack a lot because they to regulate their blood sugar. So that child may have to, or they may have to go to the nurse office for injections. So that's specific to that. That would be applicable. A situation where the 504 is applicable. And then also you might have kids who truly may be dealing with trauma or like it's not a sustained trauma, like a temporary trauma caused by a situation. So for example, they may lose housing, or they may have be in a situation where they're all of a sudden now they're homeless, or just whatever that is, that they may need these mental health uh, they may have mental health issues where they require counseling, and they may be removed from the class for that. So all of those fall under what you would consider what a child might need for a 504. So I'll just give you some information directly from this and I'll also be leaving you with some resources as well. The 504 plan developed for any student must address services needed to access and participate in the learning process offered to grade appropriate peers, which means that they everything that the 504 is offering those kids, or the kids that are put on 504, it has to equal the same amount of education, the same amount of learning that their grade level peers are getting. If that child is being pulled out and they're in fifth grade, it should match what the other fifth grader students have. Okay. Then keeping in mind, so I hope that everybody is good with that and everybody clear about that. Now, the difference with now we're looking at is with the IEP. And an IEP, because we're in Florida, we love those letters, right? An IEP is an individualized education program. That's what it means. Okay. This plan includes measurable goals, accommodations or modifications, how progress will be measured, and related services. So when you see a child perhaps maybe moving a little bit slower than their peers, they're going to be pulled for testing first of all, just to see if a plan needs to be written for that particular child. And then you're providing an alternate learning strategy. That's really what the IEP is all about. Some kids, they just get it in a certain way, we have provided resources for you all as well. All right. But let's look at some of the areas where a child may need to specifically be on an IEP. Um, you're thinking about things like if a child is autistic, or for example, that child may be deaf or blind. Okay, the child may have multiple disabilities. They may have speech impediments. They may have some way their health is impaired. They have special education. They might need a what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for?
Like a
They may need
device to support them in their
an
way of
aid. Yes,
yes.
some type of aid
Mhm.
that might help them for hearing, for the vision, for things like that. So those are things that they will need. So it covers the not just how they're learning, but what they're learning as well, and the style in which they are learning in. So just understand that that's the IEP. That's the reason for the IEP, and those will usually last them throughout their school career. All right. So just keeping in mind that that's what that's for. Right. So this, if that's the short and long of it, and of course, with our additional experts that are on this evening, can also help clarify if you all have any additional questions regarding the IEP and the 504. And now, Will.
Hello, hello. My name is Will. I am the Vice President of the Hillsborough County Special Education PTA. I'm also a local president at my son's elementary school. And I am excited to share with you briefly about SEPTAs. And so SEPTA is a special education PTA. So it's a little bit different than a regular PTA that you may or may not have in your school. Now, it is important to recognize that there are various kinds of parent and student groups out there. So your school may have a PTO, which is a parent teacher organization, or PTC, which is a cooperation, or a boosters club, or a student council, or there could be a number of names. And while we chose to go the PTA route with the way that we organize, we are not exclusive to other organizations that want to work with us. We have members who are not part of any volunteer group. They're lone wolfing it at their school, And we love that. And we want to support all of those folks. But we should get into what is a special education PTA. But to do that, we should quickly look at what a PTA is, right? You might think of a PTA or any of those groups as the helicopter parents at the school who are running the bake sale and they're the ones in charge and all that kind of stuff. And that may be true at your school, or at least it is on TV. But ultimately, PTA, the Parent Teacher Association, the mission globally, nationally, at the state level, county level, and at the local level is ultimately to advocate for all children, right? That is the mission, as you can see on the screen, that it should all come back to. So yes, there are elements of fundraising and programs and all that kind of fun stuff, but ultimately it's about advocating for all children. Now, when we get to what is a SEPTA, what is a special education PTA, this is a specific type of PTA. So it follows the same rules. We have the same bylaws as you would see in other. We are a 503c IRS recognized nonprofit that operates with those rules. But the focus is a little bit more towards advocating for students with those special needs for their families and educators within the school district. So here in Hillsborough County, we launched about 1.5 years ago. We chartered the very first and only at the time countywide SEPTA in the state of Florida. And that's the Hillsborough County SEPTA, which is hcsepta.org, if you're interested in checking us out online. And our goal is to take what PTA does, because PTA is kind of all over the place. They have focus on programs like Reflections art competitions, and they have, the list goes on. I won't waste your time with all that. SEPTA, we have programs too, but we're, again, focused more on that, advocating and supporting and educating and connecting those families with those special needs and support needs at home. Right. And so how does the SEPTA support families? We promote things like family engagement. That might be events that are specifically like meetups that are meant for those families, so they can come together and share that time. It's shared resources is another great way that we're supporting families. In Hillsborough County, again, your county, we're in Florida, so the counties are pretty big here. Hillsborough County is huge. From one end to the other, you might drive over an hour easily without even considering traffic. And so it's not always easy to know those little things that are going on that are really important for families to know about. That could be anything from Sunshine Sunday at Glacier Children's Museum, where they have the lights are a little bit dimmer, more sensory friendly, less expensive to make that more accessible to families that need that, to maybe a little event at a little mom and pop's shop that's saying, hey, we support those special needs, so we're going to do something special here. Along with educational resources from Child Find and Fiddlers and other organizations that are out there. So we can help families connect to those. Training and education is another great one. This could be anything from, we did a series last school year about supporting and representing special needs families at PTA events. So how to create an autistic friendly event, how to speak up at a meeting to make sure your voices are heard, how to step into leadership, take over your PTA if you have one or whatever organization you have, how do you get on the board so you can help make those decisions, all the way up to our next training on, I'm drawing a blank on the date, but coming up is on the IEP binder. So how do you create an IEP binder so you can come organized into that IEP meeting? And also when you come in organized, it lets the people running the meeting know that you're serious. Because sometimes depending on where you are, if they think they can get away with it, they might. But this tells them, hey, I'm organized. I know what I'm doing. I've got the things here. And then just general support. So I can share a personal story. They talk about how it takes a village to raise a kid. And those families with special needs in their homes, that village is a lot different looking because you don't trust just anybody. Not just any villager is going to watch your kid. At my son's school, we have used our work in the PTA and the advocacy to work with other families that also have other support needs. They understand. And not only do we have friends as adults, but my son has a friend. He has a couple of best friends, which is just incredible to see. But even people that we can say, hey, let's get the kids together. Maybe the adults can go to dinner. We can go do something and we can talk and we can share stories and we can vent sometimes and we can support one another. And one important aspect of what we do in Hillsborough County, and I say we were the only countywide SEPTA in Florida. That's changing because we have been working with county council PTAs in Pinellas, in Pasco, in Miami-Dade, and other counties that have heard about our programs, and they are, hey, we want to do something similar. How can you help us? And so we're trying to help them start the process. In other states, there are countywide, even statewide SEPTAs that you can look to for inspiration. But here in Hillsborough County, we have a program that we call the Family Access Advocate. And I won't go into great detail because it is a really cool program, but I want to get your taste buds wet a little bit here. This is a position that we are advocating to create on PTA boards, student governments. Yes, students can do this. So you can imagine a high school student who's advocating and supporting his or her classmates or themselves. Other organizations like I said, boosters, advocacy clubs, whatever it is, as a liaison between the organization, the school, and families, and ultimately trying to help create those more inclusive events, paying attention to what do our students actually need. And then what's really cool, so you might be thinking, well, this sounds great, but we don't have a PTA. We don't have any of this stuff at my school. So here's a couple of beautiful things that we can look at. So one, you might have a position where you can start a PTA or a SEPTA. Now, often I would recommend if you have a PTA or a PTO or something like that, you don't necessarily need to start a SEPTA because you might be competing for resources. Membership, fundraising, events, you might be clashing, and that's not going to help anyone. So if you have an existing organization and you want to see a focus on those special needs, then you can maybe help them create a task force or a committee or a chair or a board position, something that would fall with that and work together. If you don't have any of these kinds of organizations at your school, or your PTA or PTO is like very separate and you're just not going to work with you, you can start a SEPTA at your local school. You can start one in your county. You can start one that covers multiple schools. You can start one at your church. You can start one wherever it makes sense. It just requires 10 members and a little bit of paperwork. So you could start one. And even if you don't say, hey, I'm not in a position for that, or we have something like this in place, HC SEPTA is here to help. So we have all of our resources are online. We don't gatekeep. You don't have to be a member to get our newsletter. You don't have to be a member to access our playbook and how the Family Access Advocate works. You don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. You just have to let us know you want to get the information. And then finally talking about, getting involved and in your local unit. So if you have a PTA at your school, if you have a SEPTA, even if it's countywide, like HC SEPTA, there's always opportunities to step in, and we'd be happy to help you understand the process and help make you a little bit more marketable to be elected to positions. So that's things like the executive board. Can I tell you, when I started getting involved in my son's school, he's in second grade now, so kindergarten, 2 years ago, I tried to get involved and got a lot of pushback because I was advocating. We want to make events inclusive. Can we at least communicate to parents what to expect so they can prepare? And I was the only one doing that. And so I didn't make a lot of progress. Year 2, I ran for an office, became secretary. Now I'm in charge of communication. So I'm making sure, at least trying to make sure we're putting out information that our families will appreciate. This year, I'm the president. And more importantly, 4 of our 7 board members represent ESE families. And so here's the question, what is SEPTA and the role that it plays? So SEPTA, again, it is like a PTA. It's an organization. Typically, it's going to be run by parents. It's volunteer-based. And we partner with our local schools, or if it's like in our case, HC SEPTA, it's countywide. So we partner with the district or all of the schools. A lot of us sit on different committees, like the Superintendent's Advisory Council for the Education of Students with Disabilities. It is a mouthful. I wish they had a better acronym. Come on, we're in Florida. We can do this, but we haven't yet. And much like your local PTA, we run events and programs and trainings. And our specific focus has been really trying to get local unit PTAs and people making decisions about events to think about the students with those needs and make decisions that reflect them. But you don't have to be a board member to do that. It could be a committee chair. So they might create a committee for events. They might create a committee for communication. You can be on that committee, you can chair that committee. And you can also just be an active member, because depending on the makeup of your school and what kind of organizations you have, just being active and just showing up might be enough to get them to start thinking and planning and acting in a way that represents all of your students. So there's plenty more out there. We could talk for hours. hcsepta.org if you want to know more about us. And then PTA has some really great resources, National PTA for SEPTAs as well. And then I also agreed the founder of Project ABA Rights had something come up. So I said, hey, I'm working, let's do it. So we talk about what is ABA. As mentioned earlier, like we could go into a very in-depth discussion about how ABA is working and the things that are changing. I swear I can't keep track, because it seems like today there's this law and now there's this one and now this is happening. This insurance company's doing this. So we'll save all those details because your situation and what you're looking at could be vastly different than someone else's. So just talking a little bit about ABA. If you've never heard of this, ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. And for decades, families have struggled to get consistent access to ABA therapy in schools. So a lot of families do this in center or in the community, but outside of school. But it is legal, it is allowed. In Florida especially, they can't deny it, although they can put up roadblocks that makes it difficult. And even though it's prescribed by doctors, it's covered by insurance, it's covered by Medicaid. It is out there and is often provided at no cost to the district or to the school. Sometimes it's still not widely accepted. That's where programs like Project ABA Rights began. This was started by a couple of parents sitting around a kitchen table saying, what can we do to help our students get access to services in school that's going to benefit them? So ABA is kind of a big umbrella. It's not a single technique, and you may have heard some things about it. It also has kind of a storied past. It is a structure. It's evidence-based. It's an approach that helps students with things like autism and developmental disabilities and behavior issues that they can help build skills, things in communication, academics, behavior, even independence. And in a classroom, when we bring this into the school, it could be teaching a child how to ask for help instead of just shutting down. It could be helping a student stay on task and completing work instead of wandering off and doing something else. It could be working on guiding positive peer interactions so they can build friendships. It's designed to break down skills into manageable steps, and it uses reinforcements, often praising. It could be sticker charts. Like there's a number of ways out there that it works. And it helps the students build that confidence and build almost like muscle memory. They start to learn, okay, this is how I do this thing. Now, the key is that we're always looking at high quality ABA because it is something that is kind of the gold standard for insurance for students with autism or those developmental delays and things like that. There are programs out there that, in my opinion, they're not great. Like they might be just taking advantage that they can get paid. So we want to look for things that high quality ABA has good social connections. They want to make it easier to join groups and make friends. It can have an academic focus, although ABA is not going to teach your kid math. They're not going to help them with spelling, but they're going to help them learn to stay on task and actually sit and do the work. Behavioral growth and independence. Now it'd be, if I didn't address quickly the myths and concerns sometimes surrounding ABA, because you will see a movement out there that's like, we don't really like it. And that's because there is some controversy in its past. It does have a pretty ugly past in its most extreme form. But families have different experiences. Some are very positive and some are maybe a little bit more mixed. What we believe at HC SEPTA and even Project ABA Rights is that ABA, when it's high quality, it's individualized and it's respectful of the child's dignity. When it's done correctly, it is all about empowering students. It's not forcing them to fit a mold. It's not changing who they are. It is helping them become themselves and be confident in themselves. And here in Florida, the law says that private instructional personnel, including ABA providers, can support students in public schools. But the statute is worded kind of vaguely, so there's some gaps, there's some inconsistencies. One of the key wordings is it requires the principal to determine the time and place or the manner and place, which some principals mean to say never and not at all. And that's not the spirit of the law. That's just kind of the clearing. Now in Hillsborough County, we have been working ABA Rights, HC SEPTA, the county PTA, a lot of different groups to try to help make that a little bit more clear. And we're making progress. It's not perfect. We're trying to do things like clarifying the law. There's a lot of conversations going on with lawmakers saying, let's clarify this. We want to make sure that when therapy is needed and will be beneficial, it can happen in an academic setting, not just at recess, not just at lunch, but in the place that's going to help them the most. And then also protecting the parents' rights to decide what therapies the children's receive and how it works. Not being in control, collaborating with the schools,
Right.
not replacing them. And so parents can bring ABA providers into schools because it helps. And it costs the district nothing. That's the best part about it. They don't have to pay.
Well, let us jump in. There's a couple things that we want to hit a point on or two before we
Jump it. Yeah,
so
take
far
it.
ahead. Go ahead, Denise.
Okay. Well, my question was, okay, exactly what you're talking about, what you want to incorporate into the schools, though. And I don't want to throw another acronym on there, but is it something close to the social emotional learning? Because we had there was a couple years ago, there was this big push for that, where we have to add these things in to help kids cope, have them try to monitor behavior, have them address the social skills. I mean, is it along that line, or is that, that's the only way we see it entering the classroom? I'm thinking, but go ahead and just address that point for me,
Yeah,
please.
so social emotional learning is definitely a big piece that we're seeing and is an important piece. It's not ABA and social emotional learning are not the same. They do overlap a little bit. So to kind of separate the two, in case you're like, what are you guys talking about? So ABA, again, is like a therapeutic approach. It's grounded in behavior science. So it is think of positive reinforcement. As you start to do things a little bit better, you get that reinforcement, which again might be a sticker, it might be a high five, it might be something that the student wants that helps them. Not typically like they're not feeding them snacks and stuff, although I guess you might see that in some places. Usually is using to support those students with autism, developmental disabilities. Social emotional learning, I would say, is more of it's school wide for one, so it's not focused on just the students with those support needs. And it teaches a lot of things like self awareness, self management, empathy, decision making, building relationships. And usually it's part of like the classroom lessons. And it's designed for every student. So where they both kind of overlap is they're working on improving things like social interactions and emotional regulation, independence. So to put that on top of my head, put that in actual practice. So a child using ABA, they might be working on skills like taking turns, right? Or managing frustration when they lose a game. Those are also social emotional learning goals, right? So that's where they can kind of overlap. ABA is going to be a little bit more individualized, and it's meant as a therapy, where the social emotional learning is kind of a little bit more broad and a little bit more, dare I say, preventative, like trying to teach the skills before they happen. Where ABA is often going to teach the skills as they're happening. Like okay, you're upset. How do we calm down? Versus, hey guys, here's how we can calm down when it happens. If that makes any kind of sense.
So I will add to that, Denise. So D Nice. He currently has an ABA therapist that goes to school with him every day. So it was kind of challenging for me to be able to understand what that looked like and sound like in the classroom setting. Because for me, just like I pointed out, it sounded like SEL. In all honesty, based upon my experience, it is SEL, but it's just more personalized and they collect data and it's basically how they develop what the child need is based upon what the child does, and then it's developed from there. Versus another way I thought about it too, because I was having a hard time with separating the two. I think about it as it's a tier 3 based upon RTI. It's specifically for that child. That child needs those specific things created just for them. And in response for that, whatever the therapist see that will be beneficial for that child is developed. SEL tier 1, every child gets it. It's not specific, it's whole group. Everybody should be getting those same types of skills or strategies taught to them. But for a teacher to understand it, like to be able to separate, the understanding for it. But Will makes a valid point. There are commonalities, but they're so indifferent. Hold on just a second. I'm gonna show y'all.
And
So
again,
for D Nice, he actually has a binder that was developed for him this year, and it builds over years. He has a binder that was developed for him, based upon his needs as it relates to being able to regulate his emotion, being able to be nice and kind with peers, being able to understand, it's not your time to talk, and you don't get to be upset and fall out the chair and do all these other things as it relates to AB. So he actually has a sensory binder that was developed for him, and it has all of this. I refer to it as stuff, but it's not stuff, but it has. Can y'all see it? Yeah, I really
yep,
can't. But it
a little
has
bit.
things in there like calming strategies cards. It has these poppets, fidgets, all kind of things in a binder. It has on here um like, remember those stickers I showed you that have the touch to them and all of that? It has all of those things in there, and he also has stickers that he gets when he does well, and it's very specific. Like, for him, he has a very hard time with being accountable. His accountability does not exist, meaning that if whatever he decides in his mind is what is going to happen today, that's what he
Just
decides.
happening.
And so therefore, they had to design things around him to be able to make him understand what his accountability is versus his peers. Because his only focus is what their accountability should be, not his. And I'll just kind of leave it there. But I think about it in a way of he's a tier 3 from day one, and everybody else in the class are tier 1, and they kind of stay in that area. From a, if you want to think, if that's the only way I can understand it as a teacher.
I got it. Well,
yeah, that's good. If I just thought of the crossover between ABA and social emotional learning is so like it makes it hard to distinguish. Again, like defining factors would be that individualized for ABA, like it's data driven individual, where social emotional learning might be. But imagine, I don't know if your school ever did this, but you have a circle, and before you can talk, you can share, you have to have like a talking stick, or they pass the conch around, or something like that, right? That is a way that's a social emotional learning tactic, right? You can teach empathy and respect and social awareness, like listening to, yeah, exactly. That's a lesson you could teach your entire class. Where with ABA, if the goal is to teach those same things, like taking turns, it might be using prompts. It's going to be a little bit more one-on-one. Then we're using prompts like my turn, your turn. They're going to be rewarding when the student waits, when the student passes, listens to someone else, or when they interject at the right time. And they're going to track that with data so they can see how many times that is successfully happening or not happening, so they can adjust the program. So again, the ABA is going to break that down into practical steps, where social emotional learning, like they might kind of hit it pretty hard. Now, they might break that down as well. So that's where it gets kind of tricky. The other big thing is that ABA is going to be typically is covered by insurance, or that's what people are hoping. Where social emotional learning, it isn't a therapy that, like, there's not a specialist who comes in and works on that. Like that's something that typically the teachers, they learn how to do and implement into classroom lessons that they're doing for everyone. Again, it's confusing. So if you're like, I still don't get it.
No, yeah, that's the way that you explain is very good. The key thing, the takeaway for me when I start to see the data, like they collect data points throughout the entire time that they're with the child, individualized as it relates to the ABA therapy that they're receiving. So it took me a minute. It probably took me like 6 months to be able to say, what are you doing? And it's not making any sense. It's not working. And until I start to see the change. And you should see a change even with D Nice, because you know him as a child. So I will say this, it has been a long haul, but there is no more elopement. There's no more throwing things. There's no more intentionally hurting peers. Like those things have reduced to or almost doesn't exist at all. So there is a big difference.
Yeah, that wraps up what I had to say. You guys look at that.
Exactly. Well, we want to make sure that the parents are understand their legal rights. We have provided a host of resources that you will have. You're going to see the resources coming up. We created QR codes for them as well. But we just want to make sure that you do understand you have rights. Everybody, you have a right to advocate for your child. You have a right under the laws that are out here, and there's just these safeguards that are out there put in place for you. Never be afraid to ask a question, and just like us, we're always learning. We're constantly learning, because as laws change, as these different things come up, it is important to understand what they are. So please make sure that you're aware that you do have rights.
And to go along with that, at any point where you feel uncomfortable in any setting when it comes to advocating for your child as it relates to their IEP, their 504s, you have ADA protections and so on and so forth. Again, one person does not make the final decision, and that includes principals. One person does not make the final decision. That also include ESE specialists. There's always someone else that could support you in that area. So you have someone that is willing to take the time to hear you out thoroughly, allow you to explain, what it is that you're needing for your child, and then for them to provide in a reasonable time a response that aligns with what you feel is the need as it relates to whatever their specific learning disability, physical disability, or whatever it may be. Again, your goal is to always continue advocacy, because we know that sometimes parents go into these spaces and they're intimidated by the process because they feel that the person on the other side of the seat is more educated than them. No one is more educated than you about your child. You may not know all the medical jargon. You may not know all the legal language. You may not know all of the language that they're speaking as it relates to what it is that they're talking about, but you know your child. You know your child best. So always stand firm in that and being vocal about whatever it is that you feel that your child needs and whatever you feel is missing out of those needs in efforts to make sure that they are successful on any campus in whatever district you live in. And I'm a big advocate for that because, again, I refer back to my grandson. It was not easy, taking on this little one. And I've been always a middle school or high school teacher and having to go back and learn the new way of work as it relates to a child with a disability. All I know is that I know it was not normal for the what you call it, the the way that he just would be outrageous. So I would just say it, outrageous in the classroom and environment. I just knew
Mhm.
that was not normal. So therefore I knew there had to be something that could be done. And was it an easy process to speak to those conversations and speak to the leaders and in those spaces? No, it was not. But the bottom line is I know that there's a responsibility by our district to make sure that those academic needs are met, and I also know that our district has a responsibility to do it in a timely fashion. And therefore, it was my responsibility to make sure it was done. So again, we are not going to go in depth in those because it requires for you to take the time and hear it for yourself. And again, we have individuals that are from different areas of this world that would that don't have the same information that would be needed for Hillsborough County. But a lot of this is standard. So again, you all will be receiving those resources. And I kind of gave you all those practical advocacy tips. Speak your mind, speak to the issue. And again, don't just settle. Never settle.
Right.
Because this determines your children's overall success rate as it relates to their future as to becoming adults.
Mhm.
So right now, if y'all have any questions, I think we could consider ourselves some experts in this work that we're doing. So anyone, we have a couple of people on, and if you have questions, please be sure to ask them here. And for those that will be watching this on our YouTube, you definitely can jot questions as well, and we'll come back and answer them at a later time.
Mhm.
Or if you just want to share a aha moment that you got from this, that's
Mm,
welcome as well.
Drop them in the chat as well.
And also note that the resources are already being dropped in the chat and they
Mhm.
will be sent out to you all as well. Thank you for the heart, Bianca.
Thank you. Are there no
Well, did you have
questions?
anything else you wanted to add?
No.
So here's the QR codes for all of the resources. We are very intentional about making sure you have a takeaway resource to be able to reflect back on at a later time. And again, we want to make sure that people don't think we're just making it up as we
Mm-mm.
go. So therefore, we always try to find you know, I've got brain fog.
Okay, well, what we try, I'll pick up from here. What we always try to do is make sure that we are, again, find reputable sources that you can go back to. As I said, peer reviewed, but we always know that we're a proponent. We really try to our very very best to make sure we give you accurate, current, up to date information. We know that the laws are changing. We know that different things happen, but right now this information is pertinent. It is current. It is correct, and so we want you to be able to just click on the different QR codes so we can share this information with you. And again, like I say, reach out to us if you also have additional questions. But we will right now at this point we try to give you as much as we can today, and we hope that you actually come back again next week and join us for as we continue on for our upcoming Parent Code workshop, and that's going to be taking place on September 10th. Same time. That's going to be navigating school meetings, and that's a big thing. Being able to have that communication within the school. Again, one of the big factors is that parents have a tendency to it takes you back. Once you walk into a school, it takes you back to when you were a child. So you have a tendency to say, "Oh, I don't want to go into this meeting," but just be aware of what it is. So that we're going to help you navigate that. And then the following week on the 17th, we are talking about ELL resources, and just to let you know what that is in the alphabet soup that we are in, English language learners. So or sometimes in Hillsborough County we call it ESOL, which is English for speakers of other languages. So just be aware that that is the upcoming meetings, and we feel free to register for that as well, because we have our QR code on the screen for the additional upcoming meetings. Anything else, April?
No, we want to thank Families for Strong Public Schools for being our host tonight. Make certain that you go ahead and follow us on our website at Sunshine Education Coalition. We're also on social media underneath that same title. And again, if you have any questions, when you go to the website, there's opportunity for you to connect with us there as well. And again, please share the work that we're doing as it relates to creating resources for our families to not only use today, but in the future. Because again, it is often stated that parents don't know. Parents don't know. Well, here we are. We're going to provide resources to help them educate themselves on the information that is so necessary if they have a child in the public school settings. And that go along with aunties, uncles, grandmas, grandfathers, that good old neighbor that can help out. Anybody that is connected to a child, and you want to make certain that they are successful in their learning environment. And then often that learning environment is a public school. So again, we thank you all very much for joining us tonight. Will, don't leave at the end. We thank you for coming and joining us tonight. And Angela, thank you for the hearts. And you all have a good night.
Night.
Good night. Thanks, ladies.